So my name is David Harden. I'm in full-time ministry. I do international missions and evangelism. Was born and raised in a Christian home. And I remember specifically there was a night where my parents had been talking to me about Jesus, and I decided that I wanted to give my life to Christ. And I believe I was around 6 years old. And I remember in my bedroom that night, I prayed the prayer and I gave my life to Christ. And I really feel like that was a milestone in my life and a key turning point that has set the course for the rest of my life. So when I was about 16 years old, the Lord woke me up from a dream, and He told me specifically that I need to go on a missions trip. So for the next day, I was researching and looking for opportunities to go on a missions trip. And the Lord, within a week, opened up doors for me to go to the country of Honduras. And that is where my heart and my path for mission started. After that first year, I found myself in Honduras for 2 weeks, ministering and experiencing a culture that I had never even known or imagined. And my eyes were opened up to just the heart of missions and God's love. And that started an avalanche effect in my life that has had me doing international missions ever since. And I ended up going for 4 consecutive years and doing short-term missions work in Honduras, where we would work in the slums with feeding kitchens and churches, and we would donate shoes and clothes and help work at the feeding kitchen. We saw the Lord move in very powerful ways. We took a team down of about 5 people, and we saw a revival break out in Honduras in these slum villages, where we saw the lame walk, the deaf hear, the blind see, and a lot of people just getting touched with the love and the power and the peace of God. So in 2015, I attended an inner healing group, and my pastor and another man who I'd never met before were leading the group. And this strange man, to me, he approached me one day and he shared a word of knowledge with me, and he told me that he believed that I had a sports injury in my left shoulder, that I had torn my shoulder, and that it caused me pain. Now, he had never met me before and he didn't know anything about me, and the truth was that 2 years prior to that, I had torn my shoulder playing football and I needed surgery, and I couldn't even wash my hair. I couldn't lift my hand above my head for a long period of time without very bad pain. So as he told me this word, he then asked me if he could pray for me. And after reluctantly agreeing to allow him to pray for me, he prayed for me, and I got completely healed on the spot. And that was the first time I had ever seen the hand of the Lord heal or move in any supernatural way. So over the course of the next year, this man started to mentor me, and he started to show me the things of the Spirit and how to move in the Spirit. And he introduced me to the Holy Ghost video series, where I started watching these videos and writing down the names of the pastors and of the evangelists and the speakers. And I discovered Randy Clark and Global Awakening. So in the beginning of 2016, I felt compelled to go and visit Global Awakening. And when I did, immediately the Lord told me that that was the place where I was supposed to go. So in the summer of 2016, I attended a 3-week intensive training on the supernatural ministries. And during that time, I was activated in many things, specifically the revelation of how to hear God's voice. And before I had the revelation of how to hear God's voice, I never saw the Lord manifest in my life, because I was like a son that had never heard his father's voice. And how can you obey if you never heard what your father's asking you to do? So once I received the revelation that the Lord was speaking to me and I was able to respond in obedience, that's when everything opened up in the supernatural for me. So a recent story which happened to me is in 2018, I was in Baltimore on a missions trip through Global Awakening, and we spent a whole day, about 6 hours, canvassing a neighborhood and just doing street ministry and talking with and praying for people. And that day we saw about 10 people healed on the spot in Baltimore, in my local city that I've lived in my entire life. So as we walked through the neighborhoods, some of the highlights that day is the first people we ran into were 3 young men, and they were standing on their front porch and they were doing drugs. And as we walked up to them and asked them if we could pray for them, the Spirit of the Lord came on them, and 2 of them got physically healed, one from a shoulder injury and one from a knee injury. And as we just ministered and shared God's love to them, they were convicted and they were almost brought to tears under the power of the love of God. Another story is that same day, we met 2 men on the street as we were walking back finishing our ministry. And one man was suffering from very severe asthma, and you could hear him breathing was very difficult for him to take a deep breath, and you could hear his asthma as he breathed. As we prayed for him, he was completely healed of asthma, and he was able to breathe very clearly, and you could tell the difference in his breathing in his lungs. The second man had suffered a knee injury, and he walked with a very severe limp. And as we prayed for him, as we prayed multiple times, the pain level continued to go down each time. And at the end, he was running in place and dancing around, and he was just overjoyed at the power of the Lord and the love of the Lord to heal him. On that same day in the evening, we attended a small church in Baltimore that met in the rafters of a Methodist church. And it is a young, very artistic, charismatic church of about 20 members. As we attended this church and ministered to them, we gave words of knowledge, and the Lord showed up very powerfully. There was a man there who had been suffering from back pain for over 10 years. And as the team prayed and ministered to him through words of knowledge, his back pain was completely healed instantly as they prayed. Also that day, I received a word of knowledge when I was praying. I felt like there was complete numbness and a sharp pain in my left ear. The same man, after he had received his full back healing, he came up to me and he told me that he was completely deaf in his left ear. And as we prayed and ministered to him, the Lord completely healed him of deafness, and he was able to hear for the first time in a long time.